My name is Naomi, 57 years old, and until recently, I believed I'd do anything for my son Jason. After my husband died 5 years ago, Jason became my whole world. I poured my life savings into helping him and his wife Amanda buy their dream home. I thought my generosity showed my love. Then came the text that shattered everything. You won't be joining us on the cruise. Amanda prefers to keep it just family. Where are you watching from today? If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you love, hit that subscribe button and share your story below. I spent 30 years as a nurse at Connecticut General Hospital before retiring 3 years ago. My husband Robert passed away from heart failure shortly before my retirement, leaving me alone in our modest 3-bedroom home. We'd lived frugally, saving consistently through the years, and between Robert's life insurance and our retirement accounts, I had a comfortable nest egg of nearly $400,000. Jason was always the center of my world. I raised him mostly as a single mother after divorcing his father when Jason was just 4. His father moved across the country to California and started a new family, rarely sending child support and calling only on birthdays and Christmas. So it was just Jason and me against the world for most of his childhood. I worked long shifts at the hospital, often picking up overtime, to ensure Jason could have the same opportunities as his friends from 2-parent homes. Despite my busy schedule, I never missed his baseball games or school concerts. Those memories of cheering from the bleachers, my scrubs still on from a 12-hour shift, are some of my most precious. Jason was a kind, thoughtful boy who grew into a responsible young man. He worked hard in school, earned a partial scholarship to State University, and graduated with a business degree. I was so proud watching him walk across that stage, the first in our family to earn a college diploma. It was during his junior year that he met Amanda. She was studying marketing, came from a wealthy suburb outside Boston, and had the kind of polished confidence that I initially mistook for maturity. The first time Jason brought her home for Thanksgiving, I noticed how she subtly inspected our modest house, her eyes lingering a bit too long on our dated kitchen cabinets and the worn living room furniture. "Your home has such character, Naomi," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It must be nice having everything paid off at your age." Despite that initial impression, I tried to welcome her warmly. She made Jason happy, and that was all that mattered to me. They dated throughout their senior year and for 2 years after graduation while building their careers. The wedding was 3 years ago, a lavish affair mostly paid for by Amanda's parents. It was held at a country club near their hometown with 200 guests, though I only knew about 20 of them. During the reception, I found myself seated at a table far from the wedding party with distant relatives I'd never met before. After the wedding, I noticed Jason's calls became less frequent. Before Amanda, we spoke almost daily. Then it became weekly, then bi-weekly. When they did visit Amanda, often found reasons to cut the visits short. "We can only stay for lunch," Jason would say. "Amanda has plans with her friends later." Or, "We need to get back early to let the dog out." Each excuse seemed reasonable on its own, but together they formed a pattern I was reluctant to acknowledge. The death of my husband hit me harder than I expected. Robert and I had grown comfortable together over 27 years of marriage. While our relationship wasn't perfect, we were partners in the truest sense. His absence left a void that made Jason's growing distance even more painful. About 18 months ago, Jason called with excitement in his voice I hadn't heard in a while. "Mom, we found a house. It's perfect in that new development in Ridgefield. You know, the one with the community pool and the walking trails." I knew the area he mentioned. It was an upscale neighborhood where homes easily sold for over $700,000. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Can you afford something like that on your salaries?" I asked, concerned about their financial reach. Jason worked as a junior account manager at a marketing firm, and Amanda was a social media coordinator for a retail company. Both had good jobs, but not the kind that typically supported such expensive homes. "Well, that's actually why I'm calling," Jason said, his voice dropping slightly. "We're having trouble getting approved for the full mortgage amount. The bank says we're about $150,000 short of what we need for a down payment, that would make the monthly payments manageable. My heart sank. I knew what was coming next. "Mom, I hate to ask, but is there any way you could help us? It would just be a loan until we get further in our careers. Amanda's parents would help, but they just bought a vacation home in Florida and are stretched thin right now." I hesitated. My financial advisor had always emphasized the importance of preserving my retirement funds, warning against large withdrawals that could jeopardize my long-term security. But this was my son, my only child. "Let me think about it, Jason. That's a substantial amount." 2 days later, Amanda called me directly, something she rarely did. "Naomi, I know Jason spoke with you about the house," she began. "I just wanted to tell you how perfect this place is for starting our family. The schools are amazing, and there's even a nursery room that would make the perfect spot for your future grandchildren." The mention of grandchildren hit a sensitive spot. I'd always dreamed of having grandchildren to spoil, to read bedtime stories to take to the park on sunny afternoons. "We're really hoping to start trying for a baby soon," Amanda continued. "And this house would give our children the kind of stable, beautiful childhood home that every child deserves." By the end of that conversation, I was already mentally calculating how much I could withdraw from my retirement accounts, despite the penalties and tax implications. The house was indeed beautiful. A 4-bedroom colonial with a manicured lawn, gourmet kitchen, and a backyard that backed up to a wooded conservation area. When Jason and Amanda took me to see it for the first time, their excitement was contagious. "This would be our bedroom," Amanda said, leading me through the master suite with its walk-in closets and ensuite bathroom, featuring a soaking tub. "And this," Jason added, opening the door to a sun-filled room painted a soft yellow, "would be perfect for a nursery someday." I could almost see a crib against the wall, a rocking chair by the window, where I might someday sit, cradling my grandchild. After discussing it with my financial advisor, who strongly cautioned against it, I made the decision to help them. I withdrew $150,000 from my IRA, accepting the early withdrawal penalty that took another $15,000 from my savings. "Mom, we can't thank you enough," Jason said when I told him. "This means everything to us." The plan we agreed upon was that I would provide the down payment and co-sign the mortgage. Since they were still early in their careers with limited credit history, my name on the loan would secure a better interest rate. Additionally, I agreed to make the monthly mortgage payments for the first 2 years, giving them time to advance in their careers and increase their income. The purchase process moved quickly after that. I met with Jason, Amanda, and their realtor to sign the necessary paperwork. As I wrote the check for the down payment, I felt a mixture of pride in being able to help my son and anxiety about the significant reduction in my financial security. "We've included your name on the deed as a co-owner," the realtor explained. "Since you're providing the down payment and co-signing the mortgage, this protects your investment." Amanda's smile faltered slightly at this information, but she quickly recovered. "Of course, that makes perfect sense," she said smoothly, "though we'll obviously buy out Naomi's portion once we're able to refinance in a few years." The closing took place on a Friday, and by the following Wednesday, Jason and Amanda had moved in. They planned a housewarming party for that weekend and invited me along with their friends and Amanda's family. The party should have been a joyous occasion, but I found myself feeling strangely out of place. Amanda's parents were given a grand tour before anyone else arrived, with Amanda proudly showing off each room and discussing their plans for renovations and decorating. "Mom and Dad, we couldn't have done this without your guidance," Amanda said. "Your advice on negotiating the purchase price saved us thousands." There was no mention of my financial contribution, which had made the purchase possible in the first place. Later, as guests mingled in the expansive living room, with its vaulted ceiling and fireplace, I overheard Amanda speaking to a friend. "Yes, it's our forever home," she was saying. "We worked so hard for this place. Years of saving and planning." I tried not to let it bother me. Perhaps she was embarrassed to admit they had needed help, or maybe she simply wanted to impress her friends. Still, the word stung. During the party, I noticed that Amanda's parents were seated at the dining table with Amanda's closest friends, while I was directed to sit in the kitchen with some neighbors I'd never met before. It seemed like a small thing, but it felt symbolic of my place in their new life. After the guests left, I stayed to help with cleanup. As I was washing dishes, Jason came into the kitchen. "Mom, thank you again for everything," he said, giving me a quick hug. "We couldn't have done this without you." "I'm happy to help, honey," I replied. "I just want you and Amanda to be happy." "We are," he assured me. "And don't worry about the payments. In 2 years we'll take over everything, just like we agreed." I nodded, trying to ignore the small voice of doubt in my head. The legal details of our arrangement were clear. I was a co-owner of the property, responsible for the monthly mortgage payment of $2,800 for 24 months, after which Jason and Amanda would refinance the mortgage in their names only and return my initial investment. As I drove home to my empty house that night, I told myself that any feelings of unease were simply the natural worry of a mother watching her child take on adult responsibilities. I had no way of knowing then how quickly those responsibilities would be forgotten. Over the next few months, I noticed a disturbing pattern developing. Whenever I suggested visiting the new house, Jason would find reasons to postpone. "This weekend isn't good, Mom. Amanda's redecorating the living room. We're both working late all week. Maybe next month would be better." When I did manage to visit, Amanda was often coincidentally out with friends or running errands that couldn't be rescheduled. Jason seemed tense during these visits, checking his phone frequently as if awaiting rescue. Our phone conversations grew shorter and less personal. Jason, who once shared details about his work projects and weekend plans, now responded with brief answers that discouraged further questions. "How's the new job going?" I'd ask. "Fine, busy." "Any plans for the holidays?" "Not sure yet. Amanda's making arrangements." Those holiday arrangements rarely included me. For Thanksgiving, I received a last-minute invitation after Amanda's sister cancelled. I sat at the far end of the table, watching as Amanda's parents were served first, and consulted on every detail of the meal. "Mom, what do you think about the stuffing too much sage?" Amanda would ask her mother. "Dad, we've saved the carving honors for you," she'd tell her father with a warm smile. Meanwhile, I was asked to help with dishes, while everyone else moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. Christmas was even more painful. I was invited for Christmas Eve dinner, rather than Christmas Day, which they spent with Amanda's family. My gifts for them, carefully chosen books, and a handmade quilt for their guest bedroom, were politely acknowledged and then set aside. Amanda's parents' gifts. A high-end coffee machine and designer throw pillows were met with genuine enthusiasm and immediately put to use. After several months of this treatment, I decided to address the issue directly with Jason. I called on a Sunday afternoon, knowing it was usually a quieter time for them. "Jason, I feel like we're drifting apart since you moved into the new house," I said carefully. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Mom," he replied with a sigh. "We're just really busy with work and setting up the house. You know how it is." "I understand being busy, but it feels like more than that. I'm making all these mortgage payments, but I hardly ever get to see the house or spend time with you." There was a pause before Jason answered, his voice taking on a defensive tone. "Is that what this is about? The money you agreed to help us, Mom? If you're having second thoughts." No. I quickly backtracked, hating the idea that he thought I was using financial support as leverage. "I just miss you, that's all." "We'll try to visit more," he said, but there was no sincerity in his voice. "Look, I've got to go. Amanda needs help with something." The conversation left me feeling worse than before. I hadn't intended to mention the financial arrangement, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Each month, $2,800 left my account a substantial portion of my fixed retirement income. To compensate, I'd taken a part-time job at a local pharmacy, working 20 hours a week to supplement my retirement benefits. The physical toll of working again after retirement was beginning to show. My arthritis flared more frequently, and I found myself exhausted at the end of each shift. My doctor noticed my elevated blood pressure during a routine checkup and prescribed medication citing stress as a likely contributor. My friend Susan, A fellow retired nurse I'd worked with for decades voiced her concerns during our weekly coffee dates. "Naomi, this arrangement isn't fair to you," she said one afternoon as I winced while standing up my knees protesting after a long shift the day before. "You're working part-time at 67 when you should be enjoying retirement all to pay for a house you're not welcome in. They're just establishing their independence," I defended weakly. "All young couples go through this phase." Susan raised an eyebrow. "Independence bought with your retirement fund isn't independence, it's exploitation." I brushed off her concerns, but her words lingered in my mind, especially after a particularly uncomfortable dinner at Jason and Amanda's house the following weekend. I had brought a homemade lasagna, spending hours preparing Jason's favorite meal. "Oh, we actually already ate," Amanda informed me when I arrived. "We had a late lunch with my parents at the club and weren't sure when you'd get here, but we can heat some up for you if you're hungry." During that visit, I noticed several framed photos displayed throughout the house. There were multiple pictures of Amanda with her parents at various locations, professional photos from their wedding, and several of Jason and Amanda on vacations. There wasn't a single photo that included me. After dinner, Amanda mentioned they were thinking about converting the home office into a nursery. "Are you pregnant?" I asked, excitement momentarily overriding my hurt feelings. "Not yet," Amanda replied. "But we're planning to start trying soon." "That's wonderful," I said. "I can't wait to be a grandmother. I could help with babysitting or even keep the baby when you two need a weekend away." Jason and Amanda exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Mom," Jason said. "We're just in the planning stages." "But it's never too early to discuss arrangements," I persisted. "I could even watch the baby while you're at work, instead of paying for daycare. I raised you alone while working full-time after all." "We'll be using a nanny," Amanda stated firmly. "My parents have already offered to help with the cost. We want professional childcare." The implication that my experience as a mother wasn't professional enough stung deeply. I changed the subject, but the interaction left me feeling even more like an outsider in their lives. Spring arrived, bringing with it warmer weather and longer days. One morning, while scrolling through Facebook, I noticed something odd on Jason's page. There was a photo of him and Amanda standing on a cruise ship deck, cocktails in hand, with a caption about "booking our summer family vacation." I immediately called Jason. "I saw your post about a cruise," I said when he answered. "That sounds wonderful. When are you going?" There was an awkward pause. "Oh, we're going in July. It's just a 7-day Caribbean cruise." "That sounds lovely," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Which islands will you visit?" As Jason described the itinerary, I felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps this could be an opportunity for us to spend quality time together, away from the daily stresses that seem to be driving us apart. "Would there be room for one more?" I asked. "I've always wanted to go on a cruise, and it would be so nice to experience it with family." "Oh, I don't know, Mom." Jason sounded uncomfortable. "We'd have to check if there are any cabins available. It might be booked up." "I'd be happy to pay for my own cabin," I offered quickly. "I could even help with some of your expenses as well. Consider it my treat for all your hard work." "Let me talk to Amanda and get back to you," Jason said, ending the call shortly after. I spent the rest of the day imagining sunny decks and ocean views, dinners with my son, and perhaps a new closeness that had been missing since his marriage. The cruise seemed like the perfect opportunity to rebuild our relationship. 3 days passed with no word from Jason. I was about to call him again when my phone chimed with a text message. "Mom, about the cruise. You won't be joining us. Amanda prefers to keep it just family. Sorry." I stared at the message, reading and rereading it, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. Just family. The implication was clear. I wasn't considered family. I set my phone down and walked to the window, looking out at my garden without really seeing it. The pain in my chest was physical, a crushing weight that made it difficult to breathe. When I could finally think clearly again, I picked up my phone and typed a response. "I understand. Have a wonderful time." But I didn't understand. Not really. I called Jason that evening, determined to get a better explanation. "Jason, I got your text about the cruise," I said when he answered. "I'm confused. What did you mean that Amanda wants to keep it just family? There was an uncomfortable silence before Jason replied, his voice defensive. Mom, please don't make this difficult. It's Amanda's family tradition to take a summer trip together. Her parents are coming, and her sister and brother-in-law. The revelation that Amanda's parents were invited was like a slap in the face. So her parents are family, but I'm not, I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. That's not what I meant, Jason backpedaled. It's just, Amanda's parents booked this whole thing as a gift for us. It would be awkward to ask them to include you. I offered to pay my own way, I reminded him. Look, Mom, the cruise is already arranged. Maybe we can plan something else later, just you and me. It was a hollow promise, and we both knew it. After a few more minutes of strained conversation, I ended the call. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The text message kept replaying in my mind. Amanda prefers to keep it just family. Each word felt like a small cut, painful individually, but devastating collectively. I got up and made some tea sitting at my kitchen table, with the moonlight streaming through the window. As I sat there, another thought occurred to me, prompting me to check my bank statements online. The monthly mortgage payment of $2,800 had left my account 3 days earlier, as it had every month for the past year. Simple math told me the story. In the 16 months since purchasing the house, I had contributed nearly $45,000 in mortgage payments on top of the $150,000 down payment. Almost $200,000 of my retirement savings was tied up in a house where I wasn't welcome, funding a lifestyle that excluded me. And now the money I was providing was indirectly helping to pay for a family vacation from which I was explicitly excluded. I called Susan despite the late hour. They're using my money to fund a cruise that I'm not allowed to join, I said when she answered, my voice breaking. Amanda's parents are going, but apparently I'm not family. Susan was silent for a moment, then spoke firmly. Naomi, enough is enough. You need to stop letting them take advantage of you. You're working a job in your retirement years to pay for their mortgage while they take luxury cruises. This isn't right. For the first time, I couldn't find a way to defend Jason's behavior. The truth was painful, but undeniable. I was being used financially while being pushed out of my son's life emotionally. What should I do? I asked, feeling lost. Talk to a financial advisor and a lawyer, Susan advised. Find out what your options are. Your name is on that house, right? Yes, I'm a co-owner. Then you have rights. It's time you exercise them. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange calm replacing the hurt and confusion. For the first time since this ordeal began, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I called my financial advisor, Martin, and scheduled an emergency appointment. I brought all the paperwork related to the house, purchased the deed, showing my name as co-owner, the mortgage documents I had co-signed, and bank statements showing my consistent payments. Martin reviewed everything carefully, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Naomi, this arrangement puts you at significant financial risk, he said finally. You've invested nearly 40% of your retirement savings into this property, and you're spending over half your monthly income on mortgage payments for a house you don't live in. I know it sounds bad, I admitted. But Jason is my son. I wanted to help him. Helping is one thing, Martin replied. Jeopardizing your own financial security is another. What happens if you have a medical emergency, or if the housing market crashes again? You've left yourself dangerously exposed. He showed me projections of my retirement funds if I continued making these payments for another year. The numbers were sobering. At this rate, I would run out of savings entirely by age 75, potentially leaving me dependent on Social Security alone for potentially decades. What are my options? I asked. Since you're a co-owner of the property, you have several legal rights, Martin explained. You could demand repayment of your investment, or in the absence of that, force a sale of the property. The idea of forcing a sale seemed extreme, but Martin insisted I at least understand my rights before making any decisions. He recommended a real estate attorney who could provide more specific guidance. 2 days later, I sat in attorney Lisa Goldstein's office, going through the same documents again. Your position is actually quite strong. Lisa told me after reviewing everything. As a co-owner who has contributed the down payment and continued mortgage payments, you have every right to protect your investment. If your son and daughter-in-law cannot buy out your portion, selling the property may be the only way to recover your funds. Would that require their agreement? I asked. No, Lisa explained. As a co-owner, you can petition the court for a partition action, which would force the sale of the property if they refuse to cooperate. It's not a quick process, but it is a legal right you possess. I left Lisa's office with a clearer understanding of my options and a heavy heart. The thought of taking legal action against my own son was painful, but the alternative, continuing to deplete my retirement savings while being treated as an outsider, was untenable. That evening, I drafted a formal letter to Jason and Amanda outlining my decision. I explained that I would be stopping the mortgage payments immediately and requested that they either refinance the mortgage to remove my name or agree to sell the house and return my investment. I gave them 30 days to respond before I would take further action. The next morning, I visited my bank and cancelled the automatic monthly mortgage payment. Then I contacted a realtor who specialized in properties in their neighborhood to get an assessment of the current market value of the house. Property values in that development have actually increased about 12% since last year, the realtor informed me. If you purchased 16 months ago, you could potentially sell for significantly more than you paid. This information provided some comfort. At least financially, this difficult decision might actually benefit all parties involved. 3 days later, I received a panicked call from Jason. Mom, the mortgage company called. They said the payment is late. Is there something wrong with your account? I took a deep breath before answering. No, Jason. I've decided to stop making the payments. What, why? His shock was evident. We had an agreement. Yes, we did, I replied calmly. But agreements work both ways. I'm supposed to be family, Jason, yet I'm explicitly excluded from family events while funding your lifestyle. Is this about the cruise? Jason sounded incredulous. You're stopping mortgage payments because of a vacation. No, it's about much more than that. The cruise was simply the final straw. I've invested nearly $200,000 in your house, yet I'm made to feel unwelcome there. I work part-time to afford these payments while you and Amanda plan luxury cruises. This arrangement isn't sustainable or fair. Mom, you can't do this. Jason's voice shifted from shock to anger. We can't afford the mortgage without your help. We could lose the house. I've sent you and Amanda a letter outlining 2 options. I explained. You can either refinance to remove my name from the mortgage, or we can sell the house. Given the increase in property values, a sale would actually be profitable for all of us. The conversation deteriorated from there. Jason accused me of breaking promises and abandoning him. When I tried to explain how hurt I had been by their behavior, he dismissed my feelings as overreactions. Eventually, Amanda got on the phone. How dare you? She said, not bothering to hide her anger. After everything we've done for you, giving you a place in our lives, including you in holidays, and this is how you repay us, by threatening to make us homeless. Her version of events was so contrary to reality that I was momentarily speechless. Amanda, I finally responded, keeping my voice level. I've contributed $200,000 to your home. I've made every mortgage payment for 16 months. I've worked part-time during my retirement to afford those payments, and in return, I've been increasingly excluded from your lives and explicitly told I'm not family. I'm not making you homeless. I'm simply refusing to continue funding a living situation where I'm not respected or valued. My parents were right about you, Amanda spat. They always said you were trying to buy Jason's affection with your money. I ended the call shortly after that, emotionally drained, but more convinced than ever that I was making the right decision. The following weeks were difficult. Jason alternated between angry messages, demanding I reconsider, and pleading texts about how this would ruin their lives. Amanda's parents called once, leaving a scathing voicemail about my selfishness and vindictiveness. Through it all, I maintained my resolve. I worked with Lisa to prepare the legal paperwork for a partition sale if Jason and Amanda refused to cooperate. I also met with the realtor again, signing an agreement to list the property if it came to that. Meanwhile, Jason and Amanda scrambled to secure alternative financing. According to Jason, they approached several banks, but were unable to qualify for a mortgage large enough to cover the property without my co-signature and income contribution. Amanda's parents, despite their vocal support, were apparently unwilling or unable to provide the necessary financial assistance. As the 30-day deadline approached, the tone of Jason's messages grew increasingly desperate. Amanda's social media posts, which Susan monitored for me since I had been blocked, portrayed them as victims of an unexpected financial crisis, carefully omitting any mention of my substantial contributions to their home. 45 days after sending my formal letter with no resolution in sight, I filed the legal paperwork to force a partition sale of the property. The process was slower than I had hoped, involving court filings and mandatory waiting periods, but it sent a clear message that I was serious about recovering my investment. 2 days after the court papers were served, Jason appeared at my door. It was the first time he had visited my home in over a year. His appearance shocked me. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders that I'd never seen before. Despite everything, my first instinct was still to comfort him, to make him a cup of tea, and listen to his troubles, as I had throughout his childhood. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I nodded and stepped aside, leading him to the kitchen table, where we had shared countless meals and conversations over the years. "Mom, I don't know what to say," he began after sitting down. "This whole situation has gotten so out of control." "Has it?" I asked. "Or has it simply reached its natural conclusion?" Jason looked down at his hands. "I never meant for things to get like this." "What did you mean to happen, Jason? Did you think I wouldn't notice being systematically pushed out of your life while still funding your lifestyle?" "It's not like that," he protested weakly. "Then what is it like?" I pressed. "Explain it to me, because from where I'm sitting, it looks very much like I've been used financially while being emotionally discarded." Jason was silent for a long moment, then sighed heavily. "Amanda never wanted you involved in our lives the way you wanted to be. She said you were too clingy, that you tried to insert yourself into our marriage." The brutal honesty was painful, but somehow refreshing after months of evasions and excuses. "And what did you say when she said these things?" I asked. "I defended you at first," Jason admitted. "But Amanda was persistent. She would point out examples of what she called your interference, until I started seeing it that way too. She said all healthy marriages needed boundaries with in-laws. Boundaries are one thing, Jason. Complete exclusion is another." He nodded slowly. "I know that now. But at the time it seemed easier to just go along with what Amanda wanted. She has very strong opinions about how our life should look. Strong enough that you were willing to let her dictate your relationship with your mother." Jason looked ashamed. "I know it sounds terrible when you put it like that." "It sounds terrible because it is terrible," I said firmly. "And the financial aspect makes it even worse. Did you and Amanda always plan to use my retirement savings to fund your lifestyle while pushing me to the periphery of your lives?" "No. Well, not exactly." Jason ran a hand through his hair. "Amanda always said we'd pay you back eventually, but she also thought your help was the least you could do as my mother. She pointed out how her parents had given her everything, growing up private schools, European vacations, the best of everything. She thought you should have done more for me over the years." The entitlement in this perspective was staggering. I had worked multiple jobs to give Jason a stable childhood, as a single mother, often going without, so he could have what he needed. "And the cruise?" I asked. "The one where I wasn't family enough to be included." Jason had the grace to look genuinely ashamed. "That was Amanda's idea. She didn't want you there because she said you would make everything about you. But she was the one who suggested I text you instead of calling, said it would be easier that way." "Easier for whom?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "For her," Jason admitted. "For me too, I guess. I'm sorry, Mom. I know that text was cruel." We talked for nearly 3 hours. Jason revealed how Amanda had gradually isolated him from not just me, but from several of his old friends as well. How she controlled their social calendar, their finances, and increasingly his perception of his own past. "She makes me doubt my own memories sometimes," he confessed. "She'll say things like, "That's not how it happened," or "You're remembering it wrong," until I'm not sure what's real anymore. While I felt sympathy for Jason's situation, I remained firm about the house. "I can't continue to fund a life I'm not welcome in," I told him. "And I won't deplete my retirement savings to support Amanda's lifestyle while being treated as an outsider." "I understand," Jason said. And for the first time in our conversation, I believed he truly did. "What if Amanda and I moved out voluntarily? Would that stop the court process? If you're willing to cooperate with selling the house, yes. We could avoid the court-ordered sale and work with a realtor to get the best price possible." Jason nodded. "I'll talk to Amanda. I can't promise she'll agree, but I'll try." As he was leaving, he turned back at the door. "Mom, I'm really sorry. For everything. I lost sight of what's important, and I let Amanda control too much of our relationship. I don't know if we can fix things, but I want to try." His words were a small balm on a very deep wound. I wasn't ready to forgive completely, but it was a start. True to his word, Jason convinced Amanda to cooperate with the sale rather than fight it in court. They moved out of the house and into a small apartment while the property was listed for sale. Amanda's social media posts continued to paint them as victims, now describing themselves as temporarily displaced due to family financial issues. She never acknowledged my role in purchasing the house or making the mortgage payments. The real estate market was strong, and the house sold within 3 weeks for $790,000, nearly $60,000 more than they had paid for it 16 months earlier. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, there was a profit of just over $200,000. As the co-owner who had made all the payments, I was legally entitled to recoup my entire investment plus a proportional share of the profits. I received $220,000 from the sale, recovering my down payment, all mortgage payments, and a small profit. Jason and Amanda received approximately $40,000, representing the equity they had built through the property's appreciation. It was far less than they had hoped for, but more than they deserved, given their lack of financial contribution. The day after the closing, Amanda blocked my number. I learned from Jason that she blamed me entirely for the loss of their house and refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing on her part. Jason and I entered a period of cautious, limited contact. He would call occasionally, always when Amanda was out speaking, in the careful tone of someone trying to rebuild a damaged bridge, one plank at a time. With my finances secure once again, I focused on healing both emotionally and physically. I quit my part-time job at the pharmacy, giving my arthritic knees a much-needed rest. My blood pressure began to normalize as the stress of the financial strain lifted. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Marshall, to help process the feelings of betrayal and loss. She helped me understand that while Jason's behavior had been hurtful, it also reflected his own struggles within what appeared to be a controlling relationship. "Your son is showing signs of being in an emotionally manipulative relationship," Dr. Marshall explained during one session. "Amanda's isolation tactics, controlling behavior and gaslighting are concerning patterns. Should I try to help him leave her?" I asked. "No," she advised. "That would likely backfire and push him further away. The best thing you can do is maintain an open door while protecting your own boundaries. Let him know you're there for him without enabling the dysfunctional dynamics." Following her advice, I worked on establishing healthier boundaries while still leaving room for reconciliation if Jason chose to pursue it. With part of the money from the house sale, I booked a 2-week tour of the national parks I had always wanted to visit. Yellowstone Grand Canyon, Zion and Bryce Canyon were even more magnificent than I had imagined. In the tour group, I met several other solo travelers, including a widow named Margaret, who became a fast friend. "My children thought I was crazy to travel alone at 68, Margaret told me as we watched the sunset over the Grand Canyon. But after my husband died, I realized life is too short to wait for someone else's permission to live it." Her words resonated deeply. For too long, I had centered my life around Jason, measuring my happiness against his inclusion of me in his world. Now I was learning to create joy independently, building a life rich with new experiences and friendships. Margaret introduced me to her travel group. 6 women ranging in age from 60 to 75, all embarking on adventures they had postponed during years of caregiving and family responsibilities. I joined their monthly Zoom calls and began planning future trips with them. 4 months after the house sale, I received a text from Jason. "Mom, can we talk just the two of us?" We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Jason looked better than he had during our last conversation, less haggard and more like his old self. "Amanda and I are seeing a marriage counselor," he told me after we'd gotten our drinks. "Things haven't been good between us since the house situation." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I didn't wish unhappiness on either of them. "Don't be, it's actually helping. The counselor has pointed out some patterns in our relationship that weren't healthy. Amanda has some issues from her childhood she never dealt with, and I've been too willing to sacrifice my other relationships to keep the peace." We talked for nearly 2 hours. Jason shared how the loss of the house had been a wake-up call, forcing him to confront aspects of his marriage he had been avoiding. He admitted that Amanda's controlling behavior extended far beyond her treatment of me, affecting his friendships, career choices, and even his hobbies. "I don't know if we'll make it," he confessed, "but I know I need to find my own voice again, whether we stay together or not." I was careful not to criticize Amanda directly or pressure Jason in any way. Instead, I focused on supporting his journey toward greater self-awareness and independence. "Whatever happens with your marriage, I want you to know that I'm here for you," I told him. "Not to fix things or take sides, but to support you as you figure out what's best for your life." "Thanks, Mom," he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I've missed you." As we parted, I felt a cautious optimism. Our relationship would never be the same as it was before, but perhaps it could evolve into something new, built on a foundation of mutual respect rather than financial dependence. In the following months, I continued to build my independent life. I joined a book club at the local library, volunteered teaching reading skills to adult learners, and planned more trips with my new travel friends. I transformed my spare bedroom into an art studio, revisiting the painting I had abandoned decades ago when career and motherhood took precedence. Jason and I established a new pattern of meeting for lunch twice a month, always just the two of us. He shared that he and Amanda were continuing counseling, but living separately while they worked on their issues. Whether their marriage would survive remained uncertain, but Jason was becoming more confident in his ability to advocate for his own needs, regardless of the outcome. 1 year after the house sale, I hosted a small dinner party for my new friends. As I looked around the table at these wonderful women I had met during my travels and volunteer work, I realized how much my life had expanded since I stopped pouring all my emotional and financial resources into Jason and Amanda's house. My relationship with Jason was healing slowly. He had apologized multiple times for his role in the painful events surrounding the house and cruise exclusion. While forgiveness came gradually, I found that each honest conversation brought us closer to a healthier mother-son relationship. The most important lesson I learned through this painful journey was that true love doesn't require sacrificing your financial security or accepting emotional exclusion. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for maintaining healthy relationships. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had simply continued making those mortgage payments, depleting my retirement savings, while being treated as an outsider in my son's life. The financial strain would have eventually forced me into a difficult situation, perhaps even dependency on the very son who had excluded me from his family cruise. Instead, by standing up for myself, I not only secured my financial future, but also prompted a necessary reckoning in our relationship. The painful process ultimately led to greater authenticity between Jason and me, and possibly saved him from years in a controlling relationship. If my story resonates with you, please remember that helping family financially should never come at the cost of your own security or dignity. True family values your presence, not just your presence. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect yourself from family members taking advantage of you? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story meant something to you. and hit that share button if you know someone who might need to hear this message of empowerment and self-respect. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember it's never too late to stand up for yourself and find new joy in life.